family with the dedication of the Rees H. Hughes Art and Humanity Building. Dr. Hughes served as superintendent of schools in Parsons. He did a great many things for the improvement of public schools in Parsons. One of the most important things was the organization of Parsons Junior College, now known as Labette Community College. In fact, he is considered the founder of this college. If it had not been for his leadership, LCC may not be here today. For this reason, the LCC Board of Trustees unanimously voted to dedicate this building in his name. Now, I would like to introduce Labette Community College President, Dr. Mark Watkins.
Thank you to the members of the Board of Trustees, Sophia Zetmeyer, David Winchell, Carl Hoskins, and Pat McReynolds, to members of the Foundation, alumni who are here. I have Jody Thompson, Mike Brotherton, Janine Albertini, Linda Krell, and Jack Minot, and Senator Dan Gone. To the friends and family of Rees Hughes, welcome here to Labette Community College. I feel so fortunate to be a part. It's just lucky timing for me to be here for this special occasion. I'm really excited to be a part of it. In trying to think up some thoughts for what I'd like to say, I've gone through some documents here at Labette Community College, and just want to mention a few things to you. So from here on, this building, the H building, will be referred to as the Rees H. Hughes Arts and Humanities Building. Maybe it was destiny this building would be one day so named. Previously, LCC's health science programs were housed here in this building. So the room number nomenclature included H for health science. Who knew that many years later, the H would actually represent the last name of our founder, Dr. Rees Hughes. So the classes and the programs that will be housed here in the Rees H. Hughes Arts and Humanities Building will include art and graphic arts, psychology, and communications. And when speaking with many members of the Rees Hughes family, we have a lot of arts and graphic arts folks, so it's perfect. Works out perfect. Dr. Hughes and the Hughes family have played an integral part in the life of the citizens of Parsons, Kansas, Labette County, and its service area, which also includes Cherokee County. Dr. Rees Hughes was recognized with Labette Community College's highest distinction as the first Cardinal Citee in 1972. His son, Pete, was also recognized as a Cardinal Citee in 1992, and his son, Rees Hughes, Rees, was also a Cardinal Citee recipient here this year in 2017. So it's only fitting that this fine building be named in honor of one of the family. Now in 1923, the humble beginnings of Parsons Junior College was founded from the foresight and leadership of Dr. Rees H. Hughes with an enrollment of 70 students. 2 years later, in 1925, 23 students made up the first graduating class. I took the liberty of looking in the 1923 yearbook called the Parsonian and found an interesting quote stated, "In accordance with the principles of practical democracy and in order to give an equal opportunity for every individual boy and girl to develop his or her fullest ability, the Parsons Junior College, the Junior College of Parsons has been established." I think the principles which were identified in the Parsonian in 1923 are just as relevant today, just as Dr. Rees Hughes' insight was for the community of Parsons, for the supporting county of Labette, so that we may do some good here in southeast Kansas, including Cherokee County and beyond. Today, Labette Community College works to remain an institution of equal opportunity and social justice. The faculty, staff, administration, board of trustees, and the supporting greater community continue their work to provide quality learning opportunities for students who desire the means to a post-secondary education while filling the needs of the business and industry. In a mere 6 years, in 2023, Labette Community College will be celebrating its 100th anniversary, and I, for one, look forward to be here to celebrate with you. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us during this wonderful occasion. And we will continue the proud tradition here at Labette Community College, established by the family of Dr. Rees H. Hughes. Thank you.
And I would now like to welcome Mr. Walter Stromquist.
You have a program, Megan and I traded places. We are two of Rees Hughes' grandchildren. There are 8 grandchildren, and we're all here except for Karen, who has to miss it because she is cat-sitting in Spain. Would the grandchildren raise their hands? Okay, everybody did come, right? Okay. So my daughter Susan is here, raise her hand. She's one of the great-grandchildren. There were other great-grandchildren that were here, but they've scattered. We are really appreciating this recognition for our grandfather, and we are especially grateful that we have the family with us because it created such a great family gathering. And we're sorry that all the great-grandchildren couldn't be here, but you know, 30-year-olds are kind of busy these days. Yeah, 30-year-olds were kind of busy 100 years ago. And Rees Hughes was 30 when he became superintendent of schools at Parsons, and he was 32 when LCC was founded. So when Megan and I realized we were going to talk, we realized that we knew much less about his early career than we wanted to, so we did some research. And the question we were trying to ask was, how could a man get into this position at such an early age? So what was the first 30 years that brought Rees Hughes to this point? And that's easy to research because all the newspapers are online. It was his family first. His parents were farmers, and they made him a farmer too, just south of Fort Scott. But by the time he was in high school, his sister Lizzie was already a teacher in the Parsons school system, and his brother John was a teacher too. So for education, they were his role models. When he finished high school, this was in the days when you couldn't go on to college in your hometown, and his mother thought he was too young to go to college. So he needed a gap year, he needed a job, and what could be more natural than teaching? So he got a job teaching in a one-room schoolhouse in a country school near Fort Scott. We've seen the site of it. And this is what he wrote about that. I will never forget the year I spent teaching in the one-room school. I had 27 pupils from nursery school through 8th grade. It was a great experience for a person going to spend a lifetime in education, but I'm afraid I got more out of it than the children did. He was 17 that year, so he did go to college. And that experience meant that when he came back from Washburn University, Washburn College then, after 4 years, with a freshly printed BA degree, he was a natural candidate for a regular teaching job in the high school. And the term they used for his appointment was he was the professor of agriculture and botany at the Fort Scott High School. He did that for 4 years. He taught farming as a science. He reached out from that position to influence the community. He was the superintendent of schools, superintendent of the Sunday school for the Congregational Church in Fort Scott as soon as he came back from Washburn. He set up an evening farm school that members of the community could attend alongside his own high school students. And, well, here's something. He gave a talk to a civic club in 1915, and we have a newspaper account of it. And you can't read it because this is in like a half-a-point type, but I saw the original. So, his point was, what is the world going to eat? He asked. What will the situation be in 25 years when the world's population is doubled if the supply of food is not doubled also? The solution he gave was to develop new breeds of plants. He spoke of improvements to apples, potatoes, corn, and what may have been a dead end, cacti, since they were first used as food in the Americas. Development of ever better varieties of foods, of plants, he said, is what would feed the world. I guess he was right. And just as a coincidence, Mary and I attended a talk in Pennsylvania just last month by a professor of one of the modern versions of botany who talked on the same subject. Same problem, same solution. As late as 1917, Rees was an active farmer of a half a section. One wonders, when he was a professor of agriculture and botany, was he really a farmer or was he really a teacher? 1917 was the year he had to decide. He married his sweetheart from Washburn University, that's Isabel Hughes, our grandmother. He could never have been what he was without her support, and her name is right up next to his. And if there are any of you who can't see the big white letters for Isabel Hughes, well, all of his grandchildren can see them. So they're there. 1917 was also the year in which Rees was picked to be the principal of Fort Scott High School after 4 years as a teacher, and effectively deputy to the school superintendent, who was the much admired H.D. Ramsey at the time. That must have been the time he had to decide that, yes, he was really going to be an educator and not mainly a farmer with a day job. 1917 was also the year that the legislature authorized school districts to set up junior colleges to continue their high school programs. Mr. Ramsey decided that this was a good idea, they would get to it. And so Fort Scott opened its junior college just 2 years later in 1919. It was the first of the ones that were junior colleges then and continued to operate. At first, just like this college, Fort Scott Junior College was an adjunct to the high school. It had the same building and some of the same teachers, and it also had the same principal. As part of its duties, Rees Hughes became the first principal of Fort Scott Junior College, starting when it opened in 1919. So in 1921, this is 8 years after he graduated from Washburn, Parsons had developed a much better school system, and it was apparently more attractive than the Fort Scott school system, and they could offer higher salaries. So they hired Mr. Ramsey away from Fort Scott to be the superintendent at Parsons. And Mr. Ramsey brought Rees Hughes with him, so they formed the same partnership. Ramsey was superintendent, and Hughes was the school principal and deputy superintendent. So this was going to be a good system, and we don't know the exact origin of the idea of Parsons Junior College, but they must have been receptive to the idea if they hired Ramsey, and I'll bet Ramsey got the ball rolling right away. We don't have the exact details of that. Maybe we'll find them out soon. But the next step that happened was luck, and it was just definitely not good luck. What happened is Mr. Ramsey died suddenly. In those days, you could die suddenly following surgery for appendicitis. That's what happened to him. And so within a day, it was clear that the school board was going to elect Hughes to be the successor to Mr. Ramsey. And that happened in April of 1922. So here he is, 30 years old, superintendent, and with the junior college project just ready to go into high gear. And in retrospect, I can't think of a better preparation for a man to be the person who would preside over that transition and to preside over the founding of the community college. So he did have a career after Parsons. In 1941, Rees Hughes became president of what is now Pittsburgh State, and later he served in the Kansas legislature, where he led to the reorganization of the community colleges, the 1966 Act, which provided them with their own districts and funding. And both the legislature and Pittsburgh State were important jobs, but I can't imagine that Rees really thought that they were more important to him than the years that he spent at Parsons.
Building is named for Rees H. Hughes, my grandfather, not this guy. No matter what he might say. He's a good guy, he's accomplished a lot, but this is Granddad's building. I want to thank the LCC administration for honoring Rees H. Hughes, our father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. Thanks to the Board of Trustees, and thanks to Lindy Forbes and her staff for making this such a great experience and being so easy and thoughtful to work with. My name is Megan Hughes. I'm the daughter of Pete and Mary Hughes, and Rees H. Hughes is my grandfather. I was 2 years old in 1957 when Granddad retired as president of the now Pittsburgh State University. In 1963, when he joined the state legislature as representative from the Crawford County area, I was 8. And in 1973, when he died of a heart attack while in Topeka on legislative business, I was 18. My point is that I knew little of his professional life. I knew him as Granddad. So I would like to tell you a little bit of what I know of that man and share a few of the memories of my cousins and siblings and myself. Like most of us in the U.S., Walter's kind of told us this, but like most of us in the U.S., he came from an immigrant family. His parents, William and Elizabeth Hughes, and their oldest daughter, Mary, moved to the United States in 1872, when Ulysses S. Grant was president. They settled on the south side of Fort Scott, Kansas. Their house was right about where the Fort Scott Walmart is now. Easy to find. They were farmers in Wales and in the U.S., and William also worked in a foundry in Fort Scott. William and Elizabeth had 7 kids altogether, and Rees was the youngest of those children by 10 years. When he was 7, his dad died of stomach cancer, and his mother took the youngest kids and moved to town, leaving some of the older ones to tend the farm. According to Granddad, his mother put an extremely high value on education, and many of the second and third generation Hugheses became educators. Granddad attended Washburn College in Topeka, where he met the practical and musically talented Isabel Savage from Russell, Kansas. They hit it off, but she was 4 years his junior, so was arriving as he was leaving. Grandma shared that when he expressed his interest in marriage, keep you hanging, she suggested that he go off and not communicate with her for 6 months. And at that time, if he was still interested, to come home, to let her know. Well, apparently his interest remained strong, and so did hers, because they married in 1917 when she graduated from Washburn. They were married 56 years, and it was a strong partnership. They had 3 kids, Marion, William David, Pete, and Janet. Marion moved with her parents from Fort Scott to Parsons, and both Pete and Janet were born in Parsons. He became an educator and administrator, but he started out on the farm, and that love of growing things stuck with him. In retirement, he grew a large garden at their home in Pittsburgh, apparently with a wide variety of vegetables, but all I remember were the strawberries. We all remember him in his work clothes out in the garden with a spade. And on a humorous note, that farming background came in handy when he was president at Pitt State. The students would cut across the oval, creating many unwanted paths in the grass. So Granddad had manure hauled in, forcing the students to walk on the sidewalks to get across campus. So as my brother Rees says, not only did he know what it took to grow healthy plants, he knew what was involved in growing healthy people. From his grandkids to students to members of the community that he represented. He was always willing to invest time and attention in each one of us. When my sister Janie and my cousin David got interested in playing golf with Granddad's old clubs on Sunday visits to their house, the adults would talk and the kids would play. Granddad created a little 3-hole course on the lawn for them to play, encouraging their interests, but locating it strategically to keep windows safe. My cousins Walt and Annie lived a block away from our grandparents in Pittsburgh. Annie would have breakfast with my grandparents every weekday morning. Granddad gave her an important job at breakfast, which was to read the weather to him. They would walk together, she to school and he to the college, and along the way he would quiz her as to the different types of trees. He was always teaching, and he was always introducing. His positions in education and at the legislature brought him into contact with a lot of people, so when we were with him, he would encounter many people that he knew. He always proudly introduced us, his grandchildren, and often as one of my favorite grandchildren. But he made us all feel special and not one over the other. He had a seemingly extraordinary ability to remember people's names and details about their lives. He had a gift for making people feel special, because to him, everyone was special. As my cousin Karen said, he was as comfortable being friends with the gentleman who ran the elevator or swept the floors as with the governor. And that is the common theme that emerged when I asked my siblings and cousins for their memories of Granddad. His genuine interest in all people and in seeing them succeed, and that came through in his actions and interactions. One final example that I am particularly proud of comes from his professional life and has to do with Douglas School and the recruitment of Dr. Levi Watkins to be principal from 1940 to 1948. Schools were segregated during that time, and Douglas School was where the African American students attended. Despite the slogan, separate but equal, most often the black schools lacked resources. But from the stories I've heard, Douglas was a school of high expectations and pride in accomplishment. And Dr. Watkins was an outstanding educator and leader for that school. When he left Parsons, Dr. Watkins went on to be longtime president of Alabama State University. Granddad traveled to Alabama to recruit Dr. Watkins because he wanted the best for all of Parsons' students. So I'm very proud of my grandfather and the person that he was and the things he accomplished. The legacy I feel that he has left our family is not one of riches or prestige. It is the example of how he lived and how he treated all of us and others. I see that legacy in my dad and in his sisters, in my siblings and in my cousins. And I hope it continues on down through the generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Through their volunteer work and professions, the Hughes family has positively impacted thousands of people in this community and beyond. The Rees H. Hughes Art and Humanities Building will honor the outstanding contributions to education and community service from the Hughes family in a permanent and meaningful way. On behalf of the LCC students, faculty, staff, administration, and board, thank you for being with us today. Now please enjoy refreshments and visiting with the family in H109. Thank you.